The sad reality is that the situation in Northern Ireland is now extremely serious. The slow but steady progress of previous years has been replaced by a growing sense of alienation and crisis. The many economic and social opportunities opened up by peace and agreed institutions are being lost. And with this, the core challenge of reconciliation is sidelined. However, there is no question that the root cause of the current problems has been the approach of the DUP-Sinn Féin tandem. They have sought to maximise party advantage in government rather than work in a consensual way. Cases of sectarian funding, the abuse of expenses and the marginalisation of day-to-day issues continue to mount. No one can now question the impact that the DUP-Sinn Féin administration, which has systematically excluded other parties from playing a meaningful role, has had on the public. Last month, the latest Northern Ireland Life and Times survey report was published. This has tracked political and social attitudes since 1998 and is the most detailed work of its type carried out anywhere in Europe. The latest survey shows a major deterioration of public faith in institutions and the belief that the Assembly and Executive are more detached than ever. By a measure of 66% of people are dissatisfied with the work of MLAs. This is similar across age, social class and national identity. 76% of people say that the Assembly has made no difference or given people less of a say in northern issues. 84% say the Assembly has achieved only a little or nothing at all. And when asked what the Assembly and Executive should be focused on, people didn't choose political issues, but said the economy and the health service. Their overall demand was for parties to make, quote, devolution work in a way which is fair to all, unquote. In most areas, there has been an undeniable disimprovement in attitudes towards politics, which traces directly to the manner in which the Assembly and Executive have operated under DUP and Sinn Féin control. And a very good illustration of the impact of this was seen in the recent United Kingdom general election, where over 40% of people did not vote. Northern Ireland has gone from having one of the highest turnouts in these elections to having one of the lowest. Much of this reduced turnout is concentrated in marginal communities and amongst the supporters of other parties who see themselves excluded from all policy discussions and are drifting away from political engagement. The long-term damage this could cause in Northern Ireland is profound. It's not just a political attitude that you can see a deteriorating situation. While the two parties have worked hard to divide the spoils of power between themselves, they have presided over a marked deterioration of the economic and social situation of Northern Ireland. Last year, Deputy First Minister McGuinness attacked me on this matter and claimed to have delivered economically for Northern Ireland. At the recent Ardèche of his party, he said it again and added the patently false claim that, quote, Sinn Féin doesn't do austerity, unquote. Rates of poverty and child poverty in particular in Northern Ireland have continued to worsen, with the gap with the United Kingdom expanding. Over 46% of children in West Belfast are living in poverty. Not just at risk of poverty, but actually in poverty. Pensioner poverty in Northern Ireland is 1/3 higher than in the United Kingdom. Tackling this through an ambitious development plan should be the issue dominating Northern discussions, but it is at most marginal. The current development plan is limited and more about appearing to do something rather than actually doing it. Agreed by the DUP and Sinn Féin with London, without even the courtesy of mentioning it to the Dublin government beforehand, there is no proposal to unleash the huge potential of cross-border economic development, and there is no economic vision for Northern Ireland. Providing a blueprint for economic opportunity and tackling poverty is what is desperately needed in the north. Yet the largest parties are focused on everything but this. It is striking that Sinn Féin has, during the last 17 years, chosen never to nominate a person to hold one of the principal economic ministries. The current political impasse is the logical outcome of an approach which is focused on maximising political positioning rather than operating in the spirit of cooperation which the Irish people voted for. It is not just about the UK government's welfare policies. when Sinn Féin signed up to the Stormont House Agreement, it signed up to implement these policies with some minor changes. What we are seeing at the moment is a desperate attempt by Sinn Féin to find a way of allowing these cuts through, but still claiming to be against them. This is the party which is savagely cutting back on school staffing and threatening 50 schools, but still delivering speeches claiming Sinn Féin doesn't do austerity. This is the same party which claims in the South it will abolish property tax and is voting to increase it in Northern Ireland. As Fianna Fáil said to the British government when in office, and as we have said since, London has to understand that you must invest in overcoming entrenched division and conflict. Northern Ireland is a special case and deserves extra leeway. This should be our government's position, but unfortunately it is not. However, the crisis goes well beyond the welfare issues. In fact, the implementation of nearly all of the important issues addressed in the Stormont House Agreement is delayed. Arrangements to allow the effective review of policies by parties other than the DUP and Sinn Féin were supposed to be in place in March. This has not happened. The Commission on Flags, Identity, Culture and Tradition was supposed to be established last month, and legislation on parades was due to be proposed. This has not happened, and another contentious marching season is underway. A civic advisory panel was supposed to be established last month. Again, this has not happened. The Budget Act is not required for any of these measures, but they remain frozen. Northern Ireland desperately needs a new impetus for progress. Stagnation and drift is deeply dangerous. It breeds alienation and threatens a return to cycles of sectarian violence which at times seem very close. There are a range of concrete steps which can and should urgently be taken. The governments can, if they have the will, take the initiative on these and break the deadening grip of the largest parties on the entire process. First of all, a new economic and social development plan is urgently required. We also need a new urgency around challenging sectarianism. While the majority of people are showing a new commitment to cross-community understanding, there is a substantial minority wedded to a deeply sectarian approach. A renewed anti-sectarian initiative is needed, and a start should be made by calling out politicians who use sectarianism to further their own agendas. Gregory Campbell's childish mockery of the Irish language was not harmless, and the fact that he faced no consequences reflects badly on his party. So too does the blatantly sectarian campaign of Sinn Féin in North Belfast in the recent election. Calling on people to vote by religion and get one over on the other side is sectarianism pure and simple, and Sinn Féin should stop trying to find excuses for it. The increasingly dysfunctional political situation in Stormont needs to be tackled. Growing detachment and disengagement from politics is the direct and inevitable outcome of how the DUP and Sinn Féin are controlling the Assembly and the Executive. They are focused on obtaining as much party political advantage as possible. Other parties are routinely excluded from discussions, and the system is milked for party advantage. Northern Ireland has half the population of Wales, but its leaders have twice the number of publicly funded political advisers. Through the tenacity of journalists, a large-scale abuse of political funding has been revealed, none of which would be possible under the legislation in operation here for nearly 2 decades. Deputy Adams never sat a day in Westminster, but took over €1 million in expenses during the last decade. BBC Spotlight found that over €1 million has been funnelled by Sinn Féin MLAs to Research Services Ireland Limited, but was unable to find details of any research work carried out by the company. And this is on top of the money funnelled by Sinn Féin to fictitious cultural organisations. In the referendums of 1998, the people of this island choose to support a new way forward. They acknowledged our shared future and set all parties a challenge of working together for the common good. And too often, they have failed.